Yes, I think I would vote for every single one of those as things I'm tired of too. I wonder who invented the phrase sick and tired. Like, I am sick and tired of that. I heard that all my life growing up, and it's still a phrase I'll use every now and then. But that's when you know, man, you are really done. Like, I am so done. I'm not just tired. I am sick and tired. But this is a feeling we're going to be talking about today, this feeling of being tired. What do you do with that? Well, as we've been saying all along, our whole goal is here's what I want to do. I want to identify my feelings, look at the facts, and determine what faith steps I must take next. And so we're going to look at the facts together, and there's this really, really cool passage where Jesus says something pretty amazing. I mean, it is so inviting, so loving, so welcoming. So to me, when I read these words to you, I just imagine this wonderful, perfectly soft pillow to land on, just to fall into, and just be like, rest. So let me read it for you. It's in Matthew chapter 11, starting in verse 28, and it says this: "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light." So the feeling of being tired. Well, what are some facts that we must look at in the midst of being tired? Well, when I look at what Jesus said right here are 3 facts for you and for me. First, Jesus is the source of rest for the weary soul. Secondly, being a Christian means that you have connected yourself completely to Jesus. And then third, Jesus does all the heavy lifting. I love this so much. Now, to understand this passage fully, you got to understand what a yoke is. And a yoke is basically this double collar that was placed on a couple of oxen. And in the agricultural world there in the first century, you would have an experienced ox that would be yoked with a younger, inexperienced ox. And that younger, inexperienced ox would learn from the more experienced beasts of burden. And that's how they would train oxen. And so 2 oxen would pull the plow, and one who knew how to obey its master and how to do its job would teach the other one. But it was more than that, because in the first century, to be yoked is also a metaphor that the religious people understood. A lot of times people would refer to the yoke of Judaism, the yoke of the Mosaic law. In order to obey God, in order to live up to God's standards, they were yoked to the law. Well, Jesus was radical in what he said. He said, you know what? I invite you instead to be yoked to the law, which no one can perfectly obey, no one can live up to instead be yoked to me. And it reminds me of the first 3 years that I was being a Christian, trying to live up to this legalistic view of Christianity. I ended up getting so tired of trying to live that life, of trying to be perfect, trying to please God and appease God. And it turns out God ultimately revealed to me that's not what Christianity is at all. I was yoked to the wrong thing, and I was yoked to legalism rather than being yoked to actually a relationship, actually being connected to Jesus himself. That's a big deal, and it was a big discovery for me personally, and it revolutionized my life to have my eyes opened to that. And so I want to offer you, we looked at these facts here, I want to offer you these faith steps that you may be called to take today. And they're this. First, a vertical next step, a faith step would be daily attach yourself to Jesus. It's another way of saying being yoked with Jesus. And then a horizontal faith step, and by that we mean something you do that impacts other people horizontally. Vertical faith step is between you and God. Horizontal faith step is between you and others. So another horizontal faith step that you could take is lovingly speak the truth about uneasy yokes. See, I believe that there are people attached to uneasy yokes, and they don't even know it. Even those who claim to be Christians, who claim to be Christ followers, they're really not yoked to Christ. They're yoked to other things. You know, I actually made a little quick list of an uneasy or wrong yoke that you might be attached to, that I might be attached to without knowing it, such as a lifestyle that you want to maintain. Just a lifestyle to maintain is a heavy burden, financially and otherwise. And perhaps that's the driving force of your life, and every day you're attaching yourself to that yoke rather than attaching yourself to Christ. Or an image that others have of you that you must maintain. Man, for some people, that's a daily yoke, a heavy burden to carry. Or a feeling that you enjoy. Just a feeling that you enjoy. You must maintain that feeling. That's a heavy yoke to bear sometimes. For some people, to bear that burden means to be stuck in addiction to something. Not necessarily a drug, but just something in order to keep that feeling going. And then lastly, an opinion or theory or belief that you have that you must prove is correct. For some people, that's the burden they're carrying over and over again. And Jesus invites you, says, come unto me and I'll give you rest. My burden, my yoke is so different than those yokes. Will you choose to attach yourself to me instead? For you who are watching and listening to this, that might be a first faith step to finally leave all those other yokes behind and attach yourself to Christ. But you know what? For those of you who've been a Christian for a long time, we got to remember that this is a daily choice to make. We don't just choose to yoke ourselves to Christ once and that's it. Every day we need to make that conscious choice to say, no, I'm going to leave behind those other yokes and yoke myself to Christ. Would you take that vertical faith step? And then this is a lot harder, but there may be people around you that you need to speak lovingly to in a non-judgmental way to help them to see that they're yoked to a very uneasy yoke and they're tired. And you can be the source of rest for them by pointing them to the easy yoke of Christ that could change their lives forever.